The sooner everybody cries because people are poor, the sooner we'll change it.
Hello everyone, I'm Eszter Vajda. Thanks for joining us and welcome to Hometown Talents and Treasures. Our goal is to introduce you to citizens who in their own unique way contribute to the betterment of society. They could be part of a charitable or faith-based organization, spend a lifetime giving of themselves, or do small acts of kindness. Regardless, they are all hometown heroes. Our guest is Bridget Shaheen, Executive Director of the Lazarus House. For 20 years, Bridget has been running a multi-million-dollar operation. Welcome, Bridget.
Thank you for having me.
You know, it's amazing, as I was doing a little research for this interview, this is not the Lazarus House that I remember, food pantry and shelter. You are now offering ESL, English as a second language, work preparation, you have thrift stores, there's even a cleaning service.
There is.
The Lazarus House has grown quite a bit in the past few years.
We have. We've actually grown so that we can answer the needs of the community, and also because we wanted to present a continuum of services that would not just be a Band-Aid, but help people move out of poverty.
Talk a little bit more about that continuum and how it helps people in all of those areas.
Sure. So we have our soup kitchen and our food pantry are the first lines of entry into Lazarus House for many people. And it introduces them to the possibilities. 2 years ago in our food pantry, we were giving out food, groceries, to about 200 to 240 families a week. The past month and a half, we've seen on a weekly basis over 950 families every single week. So for us, that translates into over 13 tons of food a week we need to be able to provide families. But what it does for those families is to allow them to come to us first, see what we have available for them, for their food needs, supplement that with their own income, and then save as much of their rent as possible, so that as much of their income as possible, so that they can pay their rent.
Talk about food and the increase of the food that you're providing. The line for the weekly food pantry has grown 48% since last year and more than 143% in the past 2 years. How do you meet the incredible need?
It's miraculous, and you know, really the hero of Lazarus House is this community. The Merrimack Valley, and actually beyond, makes it possible for us. People will go out and do their own food shopping and buy 5 bags of groceries for themselves and 1 bag for us, or 2 bags for us. And we get those kinds of donations, and then we get people who will come up to us and say, I'd like to give you $500 a month toward food, but I'd like to use it in a way that you can get the most benefit. So how about if we go to BJ's together? And we have a gentleman that does that for us and takes our food coordinator to BJ's every month and allows him to shop for what he wants. So donations of all sizes, any sizes. Supermarkets are fabulous to us. The Market Basket is incredibly good to us. Stop and Shop is very good to us as well. Hannaford's, we get donations and we pick up food from all of those places so that we can provide enough food for the people that are in need.
Now, you talked about a continuum of services. Since 1998, over 72% of work preparation participants transition to full employment. What kind of feedback do you hear from people? Do people come back and say, Bridget, look, oh my God, my life completely has changed?
A lot of people don't, because it's a very difficult time for them to look back at. But as a matter of fact, I got a call yesterday from a woman who works in a temp agency. And she said to me, another person whose name I won't give tonight, is an assistant manager at that same temp agency. And she was a guest of ours, probably about 5 years ago. And now she's the assistant manager. And while she can't give to us directly, as she says, She writes a grant to her temp agency's parent company, and every year gets a sizable donation for Lazarus House through this organization, and she's excited to do that. She called me, I returned the call, and she didn't answer, but this other lady did, and she said, I'm going to tell you what I don't often say to people. 2 years ago, I was a recipient of your services, and now I have a job, and I am just delighted to be able to be a part of an organization that gives back. So it is exciting.
What does that make you feel like?
It makes me feel like, you know, we're there doing what we hoped to be able to do. And may we continue to be able to do that for as many people as come through the doors. It would be wonderful. One
of the interesting programs you have is Spark, the cleaning service.
Right.
Sparkle, the cleaning service.
Yes.
Very unique kind of service. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, when welfare reform came in the 90s, in the late 90s, there were no provisions made for people who may not be literate in their own language, may not be literate in our language. Where were they going to go? Where were people going to go that never had a work experience? How are they going to be able to find jobs? So to say that you could only be on welfare for 2 years and then that was it, what was going to happen to these unfortunate people who didn't have the luxury that we all do of an education? And so we opened Sparkle. We opened a work preparation program. We created a program where people come in and they study English 4 hours a day for 8 weeks. And during that process, they learn to be reliable, punctual, they follow direction and do what we ask them to do, as well as learn English. At the end of those 8 weeks, as long as they have done all those things that we've asked, we then hire them into our cleaning company for 4 months.
Wow.
So they go out and they clean offices and homes, and they do that for 4 months, and then we help get them placed. And it's not always in cleaning services. You know, it's been from everything to a local jewelry store to actually 2 of our past, we call them sparklers, have opened their own companies.
Wow.
One has opened her own cleaning company, and now she hires our trainees. And we have a gentleman who heard us talking about how not enough people had the ability to drive, and so it was difficult for us to place them in places where they couldn't get to. And so he owned a driving school that he runs in Spanish, and they've made it through this recession, and they're still open and doing well, both of them.
Bridget, how have you seen the face of poverty change in past few years during the recession as we continue in this? How have you seen the clientele change?
The clientele are so many people who have never been in this situation before, who have never had the need for services before, who are panic-stricken, who often come to us crying with their resumes in hands. Can you help me find a job? Can you give this out to as many people as you know? How can we get through this? And in Lawrence, because of the makeup of the city, it's an immigrant city. It was founded as an immigrant city. It's still an immigrant city. It will always be an immigrant city, and we need to take pride in that. We're a starting off place for people. And so people come in, and they're the laboring people. They are the blue-collar workers. They're not the white-collar workers. And so if the economy turned around tomorrow, it would take 4 or 5 years for the job market to open up in the trickle-down fashion to the people that we serve in Lawrence. So it's very difficult to look at the economy taking this slow track, because we know it's that much slower for the people that we're serving. And in the meantime, it's very difficult. People are extremely stressed because they are worried, because they know that the strain is so great on the nonprofits in the area.
That must be very straining on you, the staff.
It's very difficult to know that people depend on you as their last resource. And so for Lazarus House, we just don't have the liberty of wasting a cent, an ounce of talent from people who come to us, any resource that we have to make sure that that guests who are already so stressed don't feel an additional burden. And so thankfully, we have a very happy and very joyful staff who are so committed that they will do anything to make sure that our guests get served. So it's exciting.
What do you think makes the Lazarus House different, a ministry different from other nonprofits? What distinguishes you guys?
I think there are a few things that make us different. First of all, we don't have many regulations that we have to abide by, because government is so complex anymore that regulations and funding is so intertwined that it's almost impossible to unravel the problems with it, to straighten it out. And we're really pretty straightforward. You know, we basically answer to God, and we're thrilled to do that. It makes us very attuned to what we do with every cent that comes into the ministry. But it allows us to give the excellent service always to the guest. The guest is always first. What's best for the guest is always first. The cost to the staff is irrelevant. We will not take funding that will force our programs to be mediocre or that cause us to spend more time doing paperwork than taking care of those that are in front of us to serve. And so we're very blessed to be able to have that as a difference, to have that freedom, to not have to follow regulations that change. We don't have, for instance, our government money won't get cut. We don't have any. You know, so while it's very difficult to raise $4 million a year, we know, while we have no secure source of income, we know how our guests feel. They have no secure source of income. But we also don't depend on the government to tell us whether or not we can run a program. You know, we will find the funding to be able to do that. We're different in that we are a continuum of services. So people don't have to come to us for shelter and then go out and find somebody else for food and go out and find somebody else for work prep, which is good for them in many ways, because we have social workers. When people come into our shelter, they're given a social worker that finds out, how did you get into this situation? How can we change it? What would you like to do with your life? And for people to be asked what they want to be, instead of told you need a job and you need to get money now and you need to get on the way. And how can we work with that? Obviously, we have to amend some things. If somebody says they want to be a brain surgeon, it's not going to happen right now. But how can we work toward what you want to be? You have that right. And when they begin to understand their own self-worth and their own dignity, and that we care about what they care about, and that we're willing to work with them to achieve that, then lights turn on. The lights in their heart turn on, and they understand their worth, and they're willing to do almost anything that you ask so that they can move forward. And our costs are less, because the social worker in the shelter talks to the social worker in work prep and talks to the social worker in the food pantry, and everybody understands, and the person doesn't have to go from agency to agency to agency. So they can come in desperation to our emergency shelter and leave with a full-time job and permanent housing.
How has your faith affected your work and what you do?
It's the reason I do my work. I think it's the reason we all are at Lazarus House. You know, there isn't enough money in the world that could pay you to do this job, that could pay me to do this job. But some days it's very difficult. You know, when we have to talk to 3 or 4 mothers during the course of a day and say there is no room for you. There just isn't any room. When we look at how do we find $4 million in this economy, and $2.5 million in in-kind goods like food and clothing, it's devastating. It's very difficult, and people will always say to me, I'd love to do what you do, but I'd take it home at night and I'd cry. And I'm like, then come and help, because the sooner everybody cries because people are poor, the sooner we'll change it. And so to me, it's all about faith. You know, we weren't called to be successful, we're only called to be faithful. So the person that God puts in front of us is for us the face of Christ. And we treat every person that comes through our door, whether it's guest, staff, volunteer, benefactor, everyone, the same way we would treat Jesus when he comes to our door. And I think that makes all the difference.
On that note, lazarushouse.org.
That's right.
Is the website. Bridget Shaheen, thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
For the community and society.
You know, we really just pass along other people's goodness. That's all we do. We have nothing to give except the goodness that other people give us. And so we're really grateful to the community for allowing us to be their channel of goodness.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's our show for tonight. Thank you to all the heroes out there for all that you do. If you want to see other episodes, go to my YouTube channel. That's the Eszter Vajda channel. And if there's someone or an organization that you would like to nominate to be featured on Hometown Talents and Treasures, email me at esternvajda@gmail.com. Remember, it can be anyone. The important thing is that they selflessly donate their talent and time to help others. See you next time.